My name is Karl Bieswanger. I'm an IT architect from Austria, from the Federal Computing Center, and we're partner in the project, Cloud for Europe. Yeah, and it's the last panel. We speak about the future. It's a little bit unfair. It's a little bit challenging, the future. Nobody knows it, what will come, but you cannot lie. It's always a prospect what will be in the future, and this is our topic today. We have a very broad panel here. We have 6 persons speaking about this. We have 3 presentations. And one information I want to give, I have read today, a friend of mine wrote in Facebook that Dropbox reached 1 billion documents stored every day. It's the first time more documents stored in a cloud every day than Twitter have tweets. I have read it today. So cloud computing overtook Twitter. So it's a very important topic for the future, I think. It's a prospect for the future. And I think we have 3 presentations right now. I guess we should start with this because we alter a little bit the program for this panel. Yesterday, in the pre-meeting with Mr. Bleier and Mr. Ebert, we spoke about the questions which we should take in the panel and speak about. And they started to chat about future challenges in cloud computing. And this was very important. They spoke a half an hour freely about the challenges in the future. And they spoke 25 minutes about social impact, education, the next generation, how they will adopt cloud computing. Is it a topic for them or is it normal? And so I think we should alter this panel from only presentations and questions to an open space, and that fits, I think, to the last panel, to make an open space and challenging a little bit the field of what social impacts could be if we have time enough for this. But then it's an open space at the end of it, and you are invited to give your contribution to this topic. Right now, for the first, I want to introduce the panelists. Yeah, the problem is I don't know exactly all the name. Mr. Jan Ziesing is from Fraunhofer Fokus. He is the director for Next Generation ID, the cluster. Mr. Ebert, he is RTO manager from Microsoft and will us give some insight in business challenges, legal aspects. Mr. Monsarrat is from Accenture. He will speak with a presentation to us. Mr. Dr. Taumi, he will have a presentation as well. He's from Huawei, maybe some challenges which is to face for a company from Asia. Mr. Steiner, he's director from Numergy, a French-based cloud provider. And Mr. Dr. Bleier, he is from EMC. He will speak free without a presentation about some challenges for computing centers, business procurers, providers, and technology providers in the future, in the field of cloud computing. Let's start with the presentation. May you start, please? Feel free, take the podium. Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Nicolas Monsarrat, so I'm leading our technology consulting activities for health and public service. So it includes both government and health industries in Europe. And wanted to share with you just a few slides on it. Since we are reaching the end, I will try to make kind of a summary of what we see in the cloud and use that for discussion afterwards. We do 3 things at Accenture. We do consulting, which can be management consulting, what should government do in the coming age, or technology consulting, what should I do with my IT, what should I do with cloud. We do implement technology. We have built the French G Cloud, for example, which is an internal cloud that the French administration has built. And we also do outsourcing, and as part of it, we have an offering called the Accenture Cloud Platform, which is our way of proposing cloud services to our clients. So this is the 3 things we do. I will try today to talk more about the consulting view of things. And As you see, it's not written cloud there. It's written government transformation. And the way we see cloud is actually a part of it, but the main question is what should government do in the coming age? So we have a view that we call the public service of the future, which is kind of a top-down strategy view of the trends in government. And what we see there is that 4 major shifts that are actually driving what governments do for their citizens and for the economic, growth. The first one is an expectation to move from standard services to personalized services, especially true for citizens. In the past, government tended to respond to interaction with their citizen coming to a branch and asking for something or sending a mail. And now, more and more, there is a trend that citizens expect from governments to have personalized interaction. So from a technology perspective, it means knowing the citizen, managing the relationship with the citizen. It means CRM. It also means interacting multi-channel. It can mean mobility. So it's a very, very strong trend from government strategy to technology components. The second one, and one of the presentations from the previous panel talked about it a lot, is the move from being reactive, I receive a request, I respond to this request, to being insight-driven, interacting with citizens and businesses based on the insight we have from them. And the image of the baseball game and all the things that analytics can do is very powerful in explaining how analytics can help governments better interact with citizens and businesses. The third trend, the shift, is a move from having the public agency manage the public life into something where the public activity is more fostering entrepreneurship, funding, coordinating an ecosystem, and working not as a manager, but more as a public coordinator. And obviously for cloud, it's a key component, and we have discussed a lot about regulation, policies, laws, etc. And the fourth shift is basically the cost component, moving from pure efficiently, cutting cost, to mission productivity and finding new ways to optimize the way governments serve citizens and businesses. So I know it's not cloud related per se, but if you look at cloud, it's an enabler for all of this, right? It's an enabler for delivering quicker and more efficiently services to citizens. It's an enabler linked to big data and analytics to becoming insight-driven. It's an enabler for governments to foster a new technology ecosystem. And it's also a cost-saving enabler. Oops, sorry. So kind of a big diagram. As consultants, we love diagrams. And you will see it's pretty interesting that it's quite consistent with what we have heard yesterday and today. It's kind of a depiction of how we see government moving to cloud. And we see various routes, especially it's more a view from a CIO or an IT person in government agency. Especially for the ones that have traditional IT infrastructure. And we have seen yesterday the French one was really struggling with these 100 data centers trying to simplify that. So route A is basically me as a CIO. I will try to transform my infrastructure and launch some initiative where I will consolidate my data center, I will create new capabilities, and maybe I will put some cloud there. And since I'm managing my own IT, I will create my own cloud, and that typically is the story of the French government. And then maybe one day, I will try to move up, open a little more to private services from private companies, opening my cloud and moving to a hybrid situation. So that's route B. And you see how complex it is, because moving to route A, you will have to transform your own people, you will have to transform your processes, you will have to move progressively to a service catalog view instead of a traditional infrastructure view. Very, very complex for a government. And the Spanish story yesterday was very strong also about how complex it is to foster this kind of transformation. For the second route that was actually not discussed yesterday, I was surprised that nobody talked about it, which is a vertical route. Typical more for small European countries, like we see that in Belgium, we see that in Netherlands, or with some regional entities, where IT entities basically outsource their infrastructure to one or several companies, which are traditionally providing traditional infrastructure services like hosting, etc. So they either move vertically to infrastructure outsourcing or are already there. And the other route to cloud is the route C, where progressively they want to turn a traditional infrastructure procurement, like procuring hosting, servers, softwares, into a service model where progressively it will turn to procuring IT, to procuring services. For example, there is a good example in the Flanders region in Belgium, where the strategy from the IT locally is to move to a service model, especially at one specific occasion where they renew their public tender. So when their big infrastructure contract, their next generation will be service-oriented instead of being traditionally oriented. So second route. And the third one is route D. It's actually the one that we have talked a lot about, which is more the Anglo-Saxon route, which is the cloud store route. Like moving to opening to the market, reducing costs as fast as possible, and putting pressure to agencies so that they move progressively to this cloud-enabled model and reduce costs as quick as possible. So it's very, very different routes. And I think one of the big things in Europe, and that's why I brought this slide, is that cloud for IT entities in governments is about transforming IT. It's not about purely about implementing technology. And in IT, when we do kind of an IT cost assessment for IT, we tend to see that 3/4 of the costs are usually people, internal people or external people, so it means also managing the people, managing the transformation. So first, Europe is very complex, and you see different strategies. The second thing, which is, and there was an interesting perspective yesterday from the Spanish presentation, which is there is something very specific in Europe, which is the way government is organized, with the layers of government, central government, regional government, and local government municipalities. The Spanish presentation yesterday also talked about something very specific, is that local government is not one single thing. You have big cities, which usually have their own IT, their own people, their own processes, their own procurement. And you have small cities with no money, no people, nobody knowing IT. What should I do? The second thing that's very specific in Europe is that not each country is organized the same way, right? Some are very decentralized with a lot of power at the region level. Italy could be a good example. Spain could be a good example. There are some countries that are decentralized too, with a lot of power at the municipality level. The Danish example is a good example, where the municipality basically are the entry point for managing the IT. And other ones which are really centralized, I would quote France as an example, but it's not an actual example. The smaller countries are quite centralized. And actually, all of these people have IT problems and questions on what do I do with my infrastructure? How do I optimize that? And what we see is that they started launching initiatives to move to the cloud by themselves. Consolidating data center, consolidating infrastructure, providing cloud services. And at a higher level in regions, we see the same thing, like with some regions building their own cloud or proposing some cloud services. So there's a good example in Lombardia in Italy, where the region of Lombardia has built as a service an e-procurement capability, which is open to each Lombardian municipalities, and they are wondering, how do I open that to other municipalities? So we see this disparate situation. So I will just end up this kind of a high-level introduction with this diagram, which is how we tend to see kind of a target situation for cloud in a European country with the multiple layers. So from top down, me as a citizen, I shouldn't have a problem of who I'm speaking to. I shouldn't know whether I'm speaking to the central government, to a region, or to a province. So I should be accessing services in an integrated fashion. That's where CRM is back. By integrated portals, integrated apps, etc., which would give me access to services powered by cloud, wherever they come from. This is the red thing, and there is actually one component missing, which is the portal or the entry point to interacting with government. The second thing is that all level of public administration and agency could be service provider to this cloud service provider. At the bottom, we should see cloud providers per se, which can be either public Like I said, that some central governments are building cloud infrastructure by themselves. Could be service providers to public agencies, like my vertical example. Or could be from the private sector, and all of them have cloud. So what's missing is in the middle, what we see, what we call here the cloud federation, which is kind of a consistent way of integrating these cloud services to enable the public administration build their new services and deliver that to the citizen and to the businesses. And that's actually what we see the role of the target IT entity within a public agency in the future. And what is it? It's actually a cloud broker, right? They would manage a catalog of service. They would manage some integration protocols and standards to get the service available. They would manage procurement. They would manage usage management and invoicing. This is a cloud broker. And we'll just finish this quick presentation by a quote from the CIO of the region of Flanders, which is managing the IT of half of Belgium. And he said, in 2 or 3 years, I want to be only a broker. I don't want to have any servers, any technology problem. I want to be a broker. That's one of the things we do at Accenture.
Thank you for your presentation.